The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Thursday. We are already into August now. We've been on a little bit of a break. So thrilled to be back with you live this morning. And we are going to be here for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Before we do that, I want to make you aware of a couple of different things. And Emily is going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can watch us here on Autism Live. I'm going to remind you that still today, there's only one way to watch us live. That's at www.autism-live.com. That's all about to change because you guys heard the rallying call and we have exceeded our 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So hopefully in the next couple of days, I don't know, we'll see. But until then, you can only watch us live here. Emily's showing you some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube page, I want to encourage you to do that. We are going to be able to start streaming live from our YouTube page. We'll also be live still on autism-live.com, so you'll be able to watch us whichever way you like. But the nice thing about when you're on autism-live.com is that there is a box there, that white box that allows you to ask questions in real time. Now, we leave that box open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can only answer your questions, obviously, when we're here in the studio. So we've gotten a couple of questions, especially in the last 24 hours, that I want to get to as quickly as we can at the start of this show. But I want to remind you that when you put a question on that site, you don't have to log in. There's no credit card information. You're not having to put in a return email. There's nothing, because we wanted it to be as easy as possible for you to write in. Now, the negative side of that is if you write something where I desperately want to get back to you, I can't. So if you want us to get back to you, make sure that you include an email. If you want that to even be an option, we won't put you on a mailing list, I promise. But if you want me to respond back to you in person or one of our guests to, that's the only way that we have to get a hold of you, is if you do that or by talking to you through the live show. So, and somebody left a message that I wish I could talk to them, and I'm going to talk to you on the camera here in just a minute, but I wish that I had a way of getting in contact with you. Okay, but participate there, and you can also email us all those other ways that Emily showed you. I also want to remind you at the start of the show that we bring a lot of experts into the studio, and today we're going to have 2 board-certified behavior analysts here, and it's a great time to ask those questions. No one gives child-specific advice on the program for a very good reason, that would be a disservice to the individual that, is asking for advice. Whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, working with a child on the spectrum, you yourself are a young person on the spectrum, or you're an adult on the spectrum, we don't want to disrespect your individual concerns by thinking that just by telling us a couple of things that we could know everything that's going on with you and for you. But there are some really great bits of advice and resources that we can hook you up with so that you can get more information, and that's really what we do here. We know that there's so much hope and there's so many different things that we can get access to if we just have the information, right? But I'm not an expert in autism. We bring experts in. I'm a parent. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is now 10, and he still has his little quirky issues, but he is completely included. Is going to start 5th grade on Wednesday. I can't even believe that I just said that. And I don't know which part I'm more in shock about, that it happens on Wednesday, that we're already at the end of the summer, or that it's 5th grade. That just both freak me out. But in any case, he continues to make progress. He's doing so well. He's at the top of his class, and we have so much to look forward to. That doesn't mean that it's all easy peasy, right? Because that would be, that would be boring if everything got easy, right? I wouldn't know what to do. But there is so much good in our lives. And I know that happened because we got hooked up with resources by accident. And we were very lucky, and I want to help you get luckier. So tell me what you need, tell me what you're looking for, and let's see if we can't make that happen. Okay, we always like to start the morning with something that we call the jargon of the day, and I think of this as our morning warm-up, when we just take one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it in our lives. We give you an actual definition, and then we give you a working definition that's a little less precise, but helpfully helps you to get a grip on what these things mean. It really is going to help you to progress. It doesn't seem like it in the beginning, because it seems like, what, have they just made this harder? They just came up with a bunch of jargon to make it harder. But as in all cases with jargon, it's very specific for a reason. And once you start to understand it, you'll get it. Okay, so today, because for a lot of us, school is starting next week, and I'm in that back to school head. I don't know about you. I know those of you on the East Coast, you're not going back for another couple weeks, but it pays to be a little, ahead of the ball here. I wish that I was more ahead than I am. We'll have that whole discussion later about, do what you say and and say what you mean and all of that. I gave a bunch of advice here, and then I didn't quite take it all. Okay, so our word for today, our phrase for today, our acronym for today is IEP. Oh yes, the dreaded IEP. So what's the actual definition? An IEP is an individualized education program or plan. Some people refer to it as the plan. It's a federally mandated legal document that details education goals for a specific child within the special education scope. Everybody doesn't get an IEP. You have to be deemed special education within that scope. And there are lots of different criteria that you can meet to get an IEP. And I know a lot of people, when they hear that their child is going to get an IEP, feel like, it's such a disappointment. Except that, whenever your child needs something, you want to give it to them, right? And if we let go of labels and what other people think of things and just think, what does my child need? This is an individualized education program, so it means that your child isn't going to be part of this cookie cutter, here's the, everybody's going to fit in this box, which happens a lot, especially in public education. Former teacher, I well know. I had one administrator once say, I want to walk down the hallway and hear all of the teachers turning the same page at the same time so that we know that every single child is getting the exact same instruction. It sent a shiver up my spine. I said, what about creativity? What about the child who needs a little bit more instruction? In any case, all kids learn at different speeds, and especially when you've got some other concerns, you need some out-of-the-box thinking educationally. And the IEP is going to help us to do that. Let's look at our actual, let's look at our working definition. It's a written plan to educate a child with special needs that must be followed. Now, here's one of the most exciting parts of the IEP. While it can be a bear to get everything that you want on that piece of paper, doesn't have to be, but sometimes it can be. Once it's on that piece of paper, it's legally binding. And it means that if they say that they're going to teach your child and they're going to give your child speech and they're going to give them OT and they're going to give them access to a computer and they're going to make sure that they teach these goals, then that's what they have to do. They don't get to get, midway in and go, yeah, we just decided to do something else. And if they do decide to do something else, that's called being out of compliance. And that's a big legal issue. But you have a whole lot of traction. So really important that we get things. I think the reason why it can be a bear is that it's so important to both sides, both the teacher, administrator side, the school side, and to the parent side, that you get things in that document that make sense for your child that are going to lead to progress. That's what that IEP is about. That's why it's so important that we attend these IEP meetings. It's so important that we go prepared. We'll talk more about that. But that's what the IEP is. It's the document. It's legally binding. It says, this is what we're doing with this child today. And if you've ever been to an IEP meeting where they list goals that your child already can do and felt like, why are we doing that? Let's set the bar higher. Part of the reason why sometimes schools will, they say, well, it's important that we be able to meet these goals because legally they really have to show progress or change the program. So IEP, super duper important. If your child is going back to school next week, you need to get that IEP out, look at what's on it, refresh your memory. And we're going to talk more about BIPs tomorrow and give you a tip tomorrow about what you can do with both of those as this school year starts to you're setting the child up for success and set your teachers up for success. It'll be awesome. Okay, moving right along, we always have a question of the day for you. Today's no different. And I don't know about you, but I was back to school shopping last night. I was. So I want to know from you, what is your favorite back to school item to buy? Is there something that you just found, a product this year that you just love? Or is there something that you look forward to? It's such a sense memory, right? We walked into a store and I could smell the wooden pencils. I don't know why. I just have a thing about buying pencil cases. It's pathological. I don't know. But and my child, usually the school gives them a pencil case. He doesn't, but every year I buy him a pencil case anyway. And yesterday was no different. And he did pick out the most expensive pencil case known to man. It was a Lego one. It's a piece of plastic and it's got Lego on and the little raised dots on the top of it. And I want to say it was $8 for a pencil case that you can get one for $1 right now at most stores. I had to get it. I'm a fool for a pencil case. I don't know why. And they don't even let them take their specialized pencils at his school. He can do the pencil grips, right? We have pencil grips, but he can't take Lego pencils. They all have to have the yellow pencils so they're not fighting over them. And, we don't have tears about a pencil gets lost, whatever. But the pencil case is my favorite thing to buy. And it probably will end up being the one that stays at home. But I like having something when we sit down to homework that's really reinforcing to him that he's got his Lego pencil case. It just smooths the way, right? But I'd love to hear from you a little bit later on the Facebook page to find out what you particularly like back to school to buy. It's my least favorite thing to buy the shoes, but I'm happiest when the shoes are bought. And we talked about it last night when we were buying shoes. And we walked into the store and I turned to both my son and my husband. I said, let's remember that last year when we were buying back to school shoes, it resulted in mommy laying down in the aisle saying, I'm going on strike and I'm going to lay here on the floor until both of you are listening to me. And that no one was happy about that. I threw a tantrum. I threw a full-on tantrum in the shoe store. And so anytime that they weren't listening to me, I went, oh, look at me. I'm going to the floor. And they got it together. We got the shoes bought in record time. It was kind of amazing. Okay, I digress. Let's move on to, we always have a topic every week. And our topic for this very short week, just 2 days of this week, is back to school. Because it's time to get back to school. That's what we're doing. My thing has disconnected, so you can't see that. But on my screen, it says back to school. In any case, I'm going to move on and say, I did. It caught up. Okay. We got a bunch of things going on this very wonderful Thursday. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Ashley Colis, who does good stuff with Ashley. And I believe that today is the day that we are going to review the backpacks. This is really cool. I did buy a backpack last night, so I can't wait to talk to her about that and see if I got the right thing. We have our school tip a little bit later on, and we have Breaking It Down with Angela. And I know today in particular, Angela is going to be reviewing the bedtime pass for us, because we need it as we're getting ready for back to school. And we're also going to be talking about regression and hopefully answering some of your questions. We're going to go ahead and take a break. I want to come back briefly and address a question that a viewer had sent in and through the night, and want to make sure that we get an answer out to this person that I wish that I had a contact for. So stick with us.
For the month of August, I figured we'd do some fun in the sun activity. We're going to make our very own frozen bowling game. It's super fast and super easy. I was inspired by some lessons I saw in skills. All right, so let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are water, water bottles, balloon, and food coloring, which is always optional. First step you're going to do is make your bowling ball, since it'll have to freeze overnight. The first thing I'm going to do is take my balloon and put a few drops of food coloring in it. This is optional. If you don't have food coloring or your child has an allergy to it, don't use it, but I thought it'd be fun to make everything super colorful. So, I have my food coloring. I'm going to put a few drops in here. And then, take this to the sink and fill it up with water and tie a knot. Here's my balloon filled with water and the food coloring. I'm going to take this and place it in the freezer with some towels, just so it holds its shape better. Our next step is to make the bowling pins. I have 10 recycled water bottles that I've refilled with water. Now I'm going to put some food coloring in them.
Straight to the center at full speed. Light will surround you in a blink of an eye.
Now that my bowling ball is frozen and my pins have been filled with water, let's go outside and play with these.
See all the colors in the sky tonight. It's time to let the sunshine hide.
I hope you and your family have fun with the frozen bowling game like I did with my friend Emily. Well, until next time, craft on, guys. Bye.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We had a message that came in that I'm just wishing I had a way to get back to this person. I'm going to read it right now. I'm an adult with autism, late diagnosis. I find the world to be a terribly confusing place. I'm considering giving up my battle. Please tell me it gets better for adults like me. Are there any stories of hope and inspiration for adults who are struggling and having difficulty living independently, understanding others, etc.? I'm going to put that up on the screen right now and say that, first of all, I wish that I had a way of contacting you in person, because there's so many things that I would say and so many people that I would have email you. But since I can't do that, I hope and pray that you're watching right now, because I want you to know that I have gotten to meet so many adults on the spectrum, and it is such a wonderful privilege for me to be able to do that and to be able to talk to you about these amazing people. And it gives me so much hope for my son. And the first person that I want to refer to and say, check out wrongplanet.net. That's the best possible resource that you can go to find out information about adults who make it work for them and are happy and joyous that are on the autism spectrum. Wrongplanet.net. Alex Plank, who is a semi-regular on the show, we haven't seen much of him throughout the summer because he's been very, very busy because he's working as a consultant on the show The Bridge. Alex created wrongplanet.net when he was a 16-year-old. He is on the spectrum, and he didn't want to be somebody who owned a website. He wanted to be a filmmaker, but he, at the age of 15 and 14, felt like, why isn't there a place where I can hear stories of adults who made this work and hear from other teenagers who are having a hard time, so that I have that inspiration? And because he didn't see it, he created it. And you know what? That's part of the beauty of the autistic brain. Temple Grandin has a beautiful book out right now, The Autistic Brain. And Temple says, you know what? if it weren't for individuals on the autism spectrum, everybody else would still be in caves making cave paintings and not know how to transfer it into building buildings. So I want you to know that they all tell me, and I see on Wrong Planet so many people, Alex tells me, and Temple tells me, and a whole bunch of my other friends tell me, it does get better. That there are times when it's confusing. There are times when it feels overwhelming, but that you find your place and that you accept that, there are some things that you may not be good at that you're going to have to work at because it's worthwhile for you to work at. There are other things that you're going to say, you know what, I'm not good at that. And I really don't care about being good at that. And you know what? Everybody else who cares that I'm not good at that is going to have to get over it. It's a two-way street. So I would say to you, absolutely, it gets better. I know for a fact that it gets better, and I want you to go to wrongplanet.net and look around. Some of the stories that are on wrongplanet.net are absolutely amazing. And some of the people are very open in the world about the fact that they're on the autism spectrum and they're open with the difficulties that they're having. Other people are only open about it on wrongplanet.net. They're going and working very high level, incredible, creative, amazing jobs, and they just don't tell anybody that they're on the spectrum, and it's a private thing for them. So you're going to see both sides of that coin when you go to wrongplanet.net, but take a look around and see all the success, the amazing, amazing success. I don't think I'm surprised anymore, but as I go through life, I over the years, I've Googled more and more things. I'm a huge Monkees fan, and I thought I was going to see a Monkees concert on Tuesday, and I'm not, because my son has a thing at school, and so I'm going to that. But I happened to notice when I was looking online that Peter Tork of the Monkees identifies himself as an individual who is on the autism spectrum. Just one of 1,000 great resources of somebody who tells their story and says, I found it really difficult, and things were happening and they were moving faster than I could accommodate, and it was really stressful for me. And then I got my diagnosis, and another example, he got his diagnosis really late and began to realize, this is why I have trouble with this. Okay, where's the roadmap? How am I going to process this information and not have it be something that's a liability? It doesn't have to be. How am I going to process this information and apply it to the world? So I encourage you to look around, Google people's names with things like Asperger's and autism spectrum disorder. Find your role models out there, but I want you to start with wrongplanet.net. And I mentioned, Alex hasn't been with us because he's been working on the bridge, and Alex had some really exciting news on Facebook the other day, that he has been given a role on the bridge. So he is now going to be an actor on the bridge. So I don't know how much we're going to see him, because he's too busy. He's too busy having a wonderful life. And you know what? That's okay for me. But we will get him when we can, because I know it's important for you guys to hear his voice. But until he gets here, go to wrongplanet.net. And I also want you to check out, we've had Nick Yates on the show many times. He is another young adult, just finished getting his college degree, and Nick is the first person who'll say, this has not been all easy, but it's not going to stop me, and I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to have a really great life, and I'm going to add to society. And oh my goodness, Nick has certainly done that. So please don't give up. We need you. We need you and your wonderful, beautiful brain. And you are not wrong. And you are not something that is less than. You're different. You're different. And if you're confused, it's okay. It's okay to be confused. It is, but hang on. Hang on, ask for help, and ask for those resources. And I would love it if you would write us and tell us what your email address is. I'll have some people email you and tell you firsthand their stories and why it does get better. So please hang in there. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I believe we have great stuff with Ashley, so stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christy and Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest here in the studio with us right now is the fabulous Ashley Colis. We call this segment Great Stuff with Ashley. Ashley is a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst with experience working with children on the spectrum, and she's also a wonderful shopper. Ashley, you have information for us today about backpacks. So tell us what we need to know about backpacks.
So when you're going shopping for a backpack, there are some must-have and must-know things. So we got to know the right size. You don't want to overwhelm a small child with a backpack that's too big, because that can cause back problems and that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that it's durable. So if you have a kid who's throwing it around, that it's not going to get ripped open. So nylon is really good. It's called ballistic nylon. Will be really good to protect the bag so it's not ripping open, like luggage, for example. It's made the same thing. Staining, spotting, that kind of stuff, and the capacity, how much it can hold. Make sure it can hold all their stuff. So you got to be thinking about all those things. And the other things that we want to think about are carcinogens and those types of things that we're really conscious of right now, like the PVC and the phthalates and lead, and that not being in our bags, because all the dyes, and we talked about a bag that was smelly because of all the chemicals. So we want to make sure that we are looking for things that are free of those carcinogens, because we don't want to expose our kids to anything more than what they're already being exposed to in their environment. And then we talked a little bit about armored bags. There are armored bags that are made of, they're called ballistic bags, and they're made of a type of nylon that protects against rifles, like high-powered rifle bullets, and there are different grades. So if you are going to get one, you can look and see what grade it is, and you can reference a website. I think it's the National Justice Department, and it will tell you what that grade of nylon will protect against. And some of them just have shields in them as well. And so there are companies that provide security for like a president or a diplomat, and actually the backpacks are more common than you might think. The first children of the U.S., they might be wearing armored bags.
Wow.
And so they have been around for a while. So it's interesting we're just starting to talk about them now. So you can definitely find some of those online. Amendment 2 has a ballistic bag. MC Kids has a ballistic backpack, and LaRue has a ballistic backpack. But your price point on these is going to be around $300.
Okay. Anything in terms of, we mentioned size, but we want them to be age appropriate in terms of design as well, correct?
Yeah. Well, that's where it comes in. You have to talk to your kids' siblings and talk to other parents and find out what's cool and what your kid likes. And if you don't know, if you're not sure if a Pokemon backpack is appropriate for your child at that age, then just opt for a print or a solid.
Okay.
So that you're not, stepping out of the age-appropriate range with sending him with a character licensed backpack that maybe his friends don't think are cool or something like that.
Great advice about the backpacks. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and delve into them a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit more about these ballistic backpacks and about if it's appropriate for our kids. And Jem and I went shopping for a backpack last night, and so I want to talk a little bit about, because I saw some interesting things out and about the backpacks. And you've got an exciting announcement for us. You've got a backpack that you have to give away.
Yes.
All right, so you're not going to want to miss that. Stick with us. More with Ashley. Great stuff with Ashley and backpacks. Be right back.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT, continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have with us here in the studio right now BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst Ashley Colis. So thrilled to have her here. She joins us on Thursdays for great stuff with Ashley, because you have such impeccable taste. You're an excellent shopper.
Thank you.
And pair that with your knowledge about children on the spectrum and your experience working with children on the spectrum, and we have some great advice about stuff. We all love stuff, right? And today we're talking about backpacks with you, and you detailed some of the different things we have to keep in mind. I wanted to delve a little bit more into these bulletproof backpacks. I think it's a shame that this is the point that we're talking about in life. But as a parent, I have to say I have questions about them. And it was one of those things that I was considering doing this year. I had been told that the price point wasn't that much bigger than a regular backpack. But then I heard that it was vastly different. So give us an idea, price point wise, where we're at with those bulletproof ones.
Okay, so for example, I talked about Armor Amendment 2.
Yeah.
So they manufacture a bunch of security type equipment like vests and like rifle attachments and those types of things, but they also have these backpacks for hunting and also for children.
Right.
And so the price point on that one is $300, and it features an NIJ level 2 protection, which means that it protects against higher velocity bullets. One really important thing that I have read about these bags, it kind of is like what they talk about watches, that it's water resistant, not waterproof.
Okay.
So it's bullet resistant.
Okay.
So that means it's not going to necessarily stand up to,
some of the things that we've
barrage
seen.
of bullets. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and like I said, it actually is more common than we might think. There are kids out there who need to be protected when they're going to school, or they might have, security detail that is with them, and they have these bags.
Yeah.
If you are considering getting a bag, and the price point is pretty high, but you can buy a shield to put into a regular backpack, or you can send your child's backpack away to have a shield insert into it, and it's almost like a bulletproof vest. So that would be something that, you'd have to talk to your child about what to do if they heard something like that, heard gunshots or something, which they probably haven't heard before. They may or may not, so that's a conversation you have to have. And then you'd have to talk to them about what they need to do, grab their backpack and put it in front of them. Yeah. And for some parents, or even for me, I would feel like I don't know where to start talking to my child about these types of things. I don't want to give nightmares.
Exactly. You don't want to make it worse, and you don't want to send your child off to school with fear. But there is a thing as a parent where you start thinking to yourself, but do I want to be somebody who's sorry later on that I didn't think about this? So I don't know what the answer is, and I'm just going to throw that out there. And I made the decision to not be fearful, and we went and looked at beer packs. No, backpacks. We went to look at backpacks. We don't even drink beer in my house, so that was just rude. But anyway, we went to look at backpacks last night, and my husband and I had this whole conversation because I said, 5th grade, I don't think we're getting the Pokemon backpack anymore, but I don't know where the shift is, and I don't want to take things. I know by 6th grade that has to be gone, but 5th grade it seems like it's a little bit of a transition. Like some of the kids are still going to have the character backpack, some of them aren't. I did some research, and I said I really want to let him inform us. I want him to decide, and I tried to do that. Really, I tried to be good, but as we were looking at backpacks, the first one that he picked, I didn't like it for a bunch of different reasons. I didn't think it was going to be sturdy. I thought it was going to break within a week.
Yeah, so that's off the list.
Right, and so I was steering him away from it gently, and then the next backpack that he liked happened to be a Dodgers backpack that was wildly appropriate, and the thing he liked about it, and we saw these backpacks everywhere, and I hadn't really seen them before, it was a one-shoulder backpack. Have you seen these?
That goes across, like a messenger bag. Yeah.
Well, actually, no. It has the zipper that goes across, but it just goes on one shoulder. Okay. And it's got a zipper that goes across it, so it doesn't have the zipper that comes up at the top, a zipper across. And I said, I don't know, because it's all like a whole different system of packing it. But that's what we got. That's what he wanted, and I liked the fact that it was a big boy, and it's basically black. And I thought, okay, it's kind of, middle of the road for him, and he really liked, and he never puts both shoulders on the backpack. He hates that. And it's weighted in a way, and the strap is heavier. It's weighted to just go on one shoulder, not across, but to be on one shoulder. I said, well, we'll try it. If worst comes to worst, we'll go and get another backpack.
Interesting.
But I liked the fact that it was a big boy one. The mom of the little boy in me is a little bit like, ooh, we don't have there was a lovely Woody Toy Story bag that a couple of years ago he would have been all over. But I went, okay, and I don't want him to be fodder to be picked on.
Yeah, and you know what? If he picked out something that's appropriate, I think that's great. And you just have to be careful that it will fit all the stuff and that it's gonna last. And it sounds like it's a pretty basic bag, except for it's kind of got that cool feature that he likes. Yes. And I think a lot of parents are more concerned about health and safety of their kids' stuff than they are about especially with lunch bags. I'm into these reusable cloth and plastic bags that I
Yes.
can put my snacks in.
Yes.
But they're also safe, and they don't contain chemicals and things. And so parents are really concerned. They don't want their kids with back problems, because if you've seen the textbooks, they're ridiculously thick and heavy, and it does get crazy. And so it was a joke in a recent movie, but this guy came in and he was wearing it on one shoulder, and he looked at all the other kids and they were wearing both straps and the front strap, because it protects you and it keeps your back from hurting, and like that's cool now too. To
have it all strapped and
to be safe, or having a rolling backpack, which when I was in high school, that was not cool. Anybody who had it was not cool.
Right.
But now you see kids all the time with the rolling backpack with lights, and it's really cool. But it's a safety thing, because they might have a really heavy bag and they can't carry it on their back, or they can't put it on themselves alone.
Yes.
So you just get a rolling one, and it's a lot easier. So it's changing, and trends are changing, and I think that we are being more conscious about chemicals and those types of, maybe backpacks that were made of the plastic before are not necessarily safe.
I have a question about that, because you brought that up. Now, when we were looking at the backpacks last night, I didn't notice any of them saying about what they were made out of and it being chemical safe, but when we went to the lunch boxes, that was a very big discussion, and I vetoed the first 2 lunch boxes because they didn't say the food safe and the lead safe and the PVC safe and all of those, or what is it?
I have a hard.
PVC or PCV?
I usually say like 3 free.
The 3 free.
They're 3 of the 3 big carcinogens, like formaldehyde and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But it's PVC, lead, phthalate, BPA. BPA is a big thing. We don't want that in our water bottles. We don't want that in anything.
Now, the one that we ended up getting, it said that it met all of the state requirements, all of the federal requirements, that it was lead-free, all of these other things. But I didn't look for that on the backpack.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the backpack, I should never assume, but it's official baseball, national baseball, whatever. But I'm going to go home and look at the tag and make sure but I bet it doesn't say anything. I don't remember any of the backpacks saying anything.
It's interesting, and I think sometimes they'll choose to omit that type of information. I don't know that it's required, but it's definitely a selling point for me when I see things like that.
Yes.
Like, oh, this is something that's for a child and it's safe, and if it's on their face or near their mouth, or they're holding it every single day, it's not going to poison them, then I'm sold.
Yeah.
But the lunch stuff is a no-brainer. You're putting something that your child's going to put into their body inside of it, and it definitely needs to be safe.
Absolutely.
So the bag that we have today is really cute.
Yes, we have a bag to give away.
Yeah, I think Emily has a picture of it.
Okay, can we see what the bag looks like, Emily? And this is look at how sweet that bag is.
I love it. I had this bag for myself. I know it'd be nerdy, but I think it's adorable.
I don't think it'd be nerdy at all. I think it's really cute, because I could see somebody having that bag even in high school. Like junior high is always a little funny thing, but I can see somebody having that bag in high school.
Sometimes it's cool to be like cutesy and that kind of stuff.
And I love the 2 pockets on the side. Because there's always things that I want to put in the side pockets.
This has all those things that I was talking about in the beginning. The padded straps, the padded back. It's adjustable. It's made for kids ages 5 to 10.
Okay.
And they tell you that it's about 14 inches.
Okay.
And they really thought about kids when they were designing these bags and keeping them safe. And it's free of all those chemicals that we talked about.
Lovely.
And the bag is by Beatrix New York.
Okay,
and
Beatrix New York.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I just think it's really adorable, and this company is lovely to have donated this to us, and I'm excited for someone to send their kid off to school with it.
So here's the 411 on this. We're going to put up today on our Facebook site a picture of this backpack and saying that you can win it. What we want you to do is to go to our Facebook page and post some sort of a message about why you want it or who you want to give it to, who in your family you want to have it, and then we're going to pick a winner based on what you guys say. So if you need a backpack, and then here's the other thing: don't put your address. But make sure that when we've had this happen a couple of times before on Facebook when we've had contests, that then we've messaged the person and said you won it, and they didn't believe it was us writing to them,
right?
And so they didn't respond, so we couldn't get their address, and it took forever.
Yeah.
So if you enter, make sure that you're watching your messages on Facebook to see
plenty of people who want this bag.
Right.
I might take it for myself if no one claims it.
No, somebody's going to want this bag. So definitely take the time, go on our Facebook page, leave a message to us about who you want this backpack for or why you want the backpack, and we'll check back a little later on in the week, and we'll maybe on next week's show we'll give the bag away. How's that?
Okay,
that work
perfect.
For you? Okay, great.
And we have some more. We have good stuff, but we have more free stuff. So
yes.
We'll have some more back-to-school stuff next week.
Cool. Very cool. I thank you so much for all this great information. It really gives us some stuff to think about with the backpacks and the lunch boxes. Really, really good stuff. All right. We'll see you next week, and we're going to take a break and come back and answer a question that somebody sent in about safety. So stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Piché, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back. We had a question that came in from someone wanting to know, what has anyone done in their state to ensure safety for our children as adults? Talking with representatives, most successful. A couple of things that I want to bring up here, and I'm hoping we've been away, and there's a lot of stuff happening in the state of California. There's a self-determination bill right now that they're asking for you to support, helping for adults on the spectrum to be able to choose their providers and their services. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get somebody on the show tomorrow to talk about that. It's a very tight timeline. But it brings up Emily Island for me because I've mentioned before, and we've had Emily on the show, I think 3 times now. And by the way, her name is spelled Island, I-L-A-N-D. You can go to her website. I believe it's emilyisland.com. And, but you can Google her and find out so much information. Emily, E-M-I-L-Y, Island, I-L-A-N-D. Emily is a parent of a young man who's an adult on the spectrum, and I count her as one of the true pioneers who really made a difference. And I was fortunate that when my child was diagnosed with autism, where we lived is the same relative city as Emily Island, and Emily had already done a bunch of the work for me and for all of the other parents. She just had gotten there and cleared the path, right? And one of the different things that Emily did was that she did a training. She created a training and did it with our area police so that they could recognize signs of autism, so that if they were chasing someone and they were saying stop and, turn around and look at me and put your hands over your head, that they might recognize signs of being different where that might have been difficult for you. And that the kinds of things that we've been hearing about recently, there have been 2 deaths in the last month from police intervening in a way that was appropriate for what they have done in the past with other people, but it just so happened that the people that they were intervening with had secondary issues. On one case, I know that it was an individual who had Down's syndrome. And anyway, it went badly and ended up costing the life of the individual who had different abilities, because the police interacting with them in the way they would with everyone else was to their detriment. So Emily trained our local police and continues to make sure that they're up on that training so that they recognize and that they know how to look for a child who's missing, but they understand how to deal with adults who have different abilities and different understandings and different social constraints than perhaps the neurotypical public. And that was a huge weight off of my mind. And Emily does this training, and I believe she has done it in many places, and you can ask Emily about having that training come to your community. Emily also has made a film, and when we just had her on the show, we talked about it. It's called Be Safe the Movie, and you can go on her Facebook site. It's Be Safe the Movie on Facebook, and check it out, because I think it's really pivotal that we make sure that as parents of individuals who are on the spectrum, and if you're an adult on the spectrum, you need to be watching this film. We need to share that. We need to see this, and we need to share this with other individuals. It's really, really clever the way it takes you through a bunch of different scenarios of things that could happen, and it shows you the scenario from a lot of different perspectives. So, in the one instance that I have already talked a lot with my son, there's a case of mistaken arrest, that mistaken identity, that there's a robbery that happens, and the teenager who's on the spectrum happens to look something like the person who committed the robbery. And you get to see this robbery from the point of view of the storekeeper and how they describe the individual. You get to see it from the point of view of the kid who did not do it, but who eventually gets handcuffed by the police and sat on the curb. You get to see his point of view. You get to see it from the police point of view. And then the whole thing is talked about what's the proper way to behave. Do you understand that even if the police pull out their guns, you are not necessarily in trouble if you follow the rules? It was a very frightening moment in the video for me where this kid is just skateboarding home and the police get out and they pull guns. And I had that moment as a parent where I thought, what would my son do in that circumstance? And my son would run. And then my head went to the next scenario of, well, what would police do if they see somebody running when they've asked them to stop? And I broke out into a cold sweat. I'm so grateful to Emily Island for everything she's done in our community, but I'm so grateful that she has taken this movie and made it available now to all of us. So wherever you are, you can get access to that movie. It's Be Safe, the movie. I encourage you to watch it and to share it appropriately with your children. I think that small children are going to be too young to watch the actual film. You save it for when they're a little bit older, but you might talk with them and start talking about why do police do what they do and prep them for when they're going to watch it. But if you are an adult on the spectrum or you are a parent and have a tween, teen, or older adult on the spectrum, you owe it to yourself and to them to make sure that you watch it. And I do think it needs to be something that needs to be shared with representatives. It's funny that you asked this because I had the strangest dream last night. And my son was having strange dreams too. We were talking about that this morning. But I guess I must be feeling like we're not getting the word out enough because I had this dream that I met the Pope. Not Catholic. I don't know why that's what I was dreaming, but that I just was in this place and the Pope was there and I had this moment and somebody introduced me to the Pope and I thought, well, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. I'm going to try to talk to the Pope about autism and make sure that, you know, he knows something about autism. I'm sure he does, but I'm just going to check. And I was trying to communicate with him, but he, in my dream, the Pope didn't look like the Pope that's currently the Pope, but and he spoke Italian, and I didn't speak Italian, and he was saying autismo, and we were having this difficulty, and I was looking for a translator. I finally found a translator and started talking to the Pope about autism, and the whole time in the back of my head I was like, gosh, I don't know that I'm the best candidate to be the person to be talking about this with the Pope, but I kept saying to myself, you're here. Make sure you talk about it with the Pope. So I do think that whenever you get the opportunity to meet a representative, and I know some of you do this, and it doesn't have to just be a political representative. Whenever you meet a representative from a company, whenever it does come up in conversation, right? And we don't want to be the one-note Sallys that only ever talk about autism. But I do think it's important for us to spread the word a little bit more, so much so that I'm dreaming about it and dreaming about talking about it with the Pope. And the Pope was very sweet about it, can I tell you, in my dream. And I remember in the dream being excited. I couldn't wait to get back to the show and say, you guys, I met the Pope, and the Pope wants to support autism issues. And I was quite thrilled about it. It was just a dream, but you know, who knows? Anything can happen, right? But we do need to be talking to people and letting them know what our issues are. I don't think I did that early on. I think early on in autism, I tried to make it look like I was handling it all and that it was all going swimmingly. And I see now that was not a good choice. So I hope that you'll check out Emily Island's site, see if she can help you with the police in your area, helping to ensure that our kids are safe as they transition to adulthood. I hope that you will go to Be Safe the Movie on Facebook and get that film for yourself and for your kids. And even I would venture, you know, my police department is already covered, but if your police department hasn't had training, either get Emily Island to come or buy them the movie and make them sit down and watch it. I'm sure the police would be thrilled to get more training. And I will say, too, that there are real police featured in the Be Safe movie and real kids on the autism spectrum. So it's a lovely, lovely thing. We have to take a break and go to the A word. This week's the A word. I think we're seeing the same one that we were watching last week because we didn't finish last week's off. And then we'll be back more after these messages. So take a look. This is the A word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Oh, she has that picture from Halloween. I want to see it. He looks so cute as Angry Bird. And, oh, can you see?
Yeah.
we've added statement. Have you seen that one?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay. So I say a statement, and he has to say a similar statement to what I said. So what we're targeting right now is I have an icy. So I would say, I have a pen, and he would say, I have an iPod. And then we would just go back and forth. And with this one, we're targeting him while we're playing with something, just to make it more natural. So when they're doing play or anything like that, then his peer would say something, and he can say the same thing. So let me set that up for you.
I'm laying on the floor.
I'm playing.
I see a girl.
Going down the steps.
She's going downstairs.
And there's Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, he's dragging behind.
I see Tigger.
Good job, Jack Riley.
Besides working on statement, Jack Riley is also learning sequencing. What he has to do is take images and put them in order. A few weeks ago, he started with 2 steps, and today he's working with 3 steps. What he has to do besides putting the images in order is he has to describe what's happening using words like first, then, and finally.
First, then, finally.
Yeah, by yourself.
We're going to use 3 boxes.
First, he
We're
builds.
going to use 3 steps. First, he makes a big, smaller tower. Then he makes a big tower. Then he makes a... No, let's try again. Finally, the pieces fall off on the
There
table.
you go. Okay, very good. Say, don't do that, Lainey. Say, let go. There you go. Get these in your words.
He's standing.
I love the bumblebee jammies. I also love the example of the fact that a therapist is there for so many different things. That, you know, here's the new baby who obviously is getting much bigger, and the way kids interact, and that the therapist helps to language that. So, you know, the baby is pushing on him and pulling hair and doing things, and that she helps him to language that, because otherwise we would get into a situation where somewhere down the road the baby's going to do something that hurts him, and then he's going to hit her back, right? So she's beginning to give him that understanding and give him the language of what to say. When they're on the playground and all those different places, she helps him to find the phrase to say. This is something that we can all be doing more with our children on a regular basis. And in fact, I'll talk about that in a second, but I want to remind you that the A Word, really important documentary, you have the opportunity to watch all of the episodes at wherever you want to catch it on their YouTube page, and I encourage you to do that. So wonderful to have this opportunity, and we thank the family who allows us to drop in on them to see what they're doing. Really very brave of them, but truly lovely to be able to see this young boy flourish. And I encourage you to watch ahead, because Jack Riley is off to school, which is an amazing thing. And we've been talking about back to school all this week. I also wanted to, talk more about this whole idea of languaging things for our kids. It's okay to give our kids the words that they need for a certain circumstance. If you think about it, that's not inappropriate. We all do that to a certain extent, right? I have a niece who has a lovely, lovely phrase that she says and taught to me as an adult, because I find it hard to say no to somebody. And then sometimes you say no and you kind of mamby-pamby it, and you say it to somebody, and then they go, well, if you could just do this, right? And then you find yourself saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to say a no again. And my niece has this phrase that she says, which is, I'm sorry, but that won't be possible. And then there's a period at the end of the sentence. So you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to justify it. You just say, I'm sorry, but that won't be possible. And as soon as she gave me that phrase, I tell you, it was life-changing, that I went, oh, that's a great thing. I can just say that. I'm sorry, but that won't be possible. And I don't have to say more than that. We can give that kind of language to our kids as well. Jem has been in this thing lately where he has a hard time choosing. And we're working on that separately so that he knows, because he's always afraid if I choose something, that means I didn't choose the other thing, and what's going to happen is the world, he has anxiety that comes around it. And so I'm trying to give him choices of things that don't matter as much so that he has opportunities to try this out. And he has gotten used to saying this phrase when we give him a choice where he says, I'm so confused, I'm so confused, I'm so confused. And I've been saying to him, let's stop for just a second and let's realize you're not confused. Confused means you don't understand. You completely understand what's happening. Just say, I'm having a hard time choosing. right? And then I'll give you some more things that might help you to choose. Because I don't want him going off starting 5th grade, and when the teacher says, would you like to do this or would you like to do that, him going, I'm so confused, I'm so confused, I'm so confused. But anyway, giving him that language and having him be able to say, I'm having a hard time deciding, has made it so much easier to decide, because in the time that it takes him to say that, sometimes he's able to make the decision. So really powerful to give our kids the words. They'll change it to their own thing eventually, but if it works for them, don't we like it when someone gives us the words? And now, hopefully you can take it out for a spin and try. I'm sorry, but that won't be possible. It's a lovely, lovely thing. Give those words to our kids. Okay. I'm just looking to see, you know what we have to do? I mentioned all last week that we were trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube page, because once we got to 1,000, then we have the ability to stream live to you from the YouTube page, which means you can finally begin to watch our show live on your tablet devices. Whether you have an iPad, or you're on a Nobby, or you're on an Android tablet, you will, once we get this up and running, it's going to take us a couple of days, you'll be able to watch it. And you guys did it. We have way more than 1,000 now. I encourage you to keep subscribing, but we did promise you that if you went on our Facebook and you shared our message about needing more YouTube subscribers, that one lucky viewer was going to win a big prize. It's a bottle of One Hope wine. It is Temple Grandin's new book, The Autistic Brain, and a lovely copy of Endless Games, Cornered game. Fabulous for kids on the spectrum, fabulous for people not on the spectrum, a really fun game from Endless Game. So all of these things support autism, and we wanted to support them, and we're going to give this to one lucky viewer, and I'm going to reach into my fishbowl here, and I'm going to pick, are you feeling lucky? I wish we could have a drum roll. Everyone think drum roll. Okay. This is going to go to Heidi Van Oss. Heidi, you are the lucky winner of the wine, the book, and the game. So Heidi will be in touch with you to get your address. Make sure, if you're watching, Heidi, that you answer when we ask for your address. Otherwise, we can't ship it to you, because I gave up mind reading to be an autism mom. Okay. So congratulations to Heidi Van Oss for winning that awesome One Hope bottle of wine, Temple Grandin's new book, The Autistic Brain, and Endless Games Cornered. Absolutely love it. All right, we're going to take a break, and I believe when we come back that we are going to be joined by board-certified behavior analyst Angela Persicke. She's here for Breaking It Down with Angela. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills Assessment and Curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills Assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills Assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills Language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mands, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. In the studio with us right now is board certified behavior analyst Angela Persicke, and so thrilled to have you here today. And we have asked Angela to give us a refresher course, a quick refresher course on the bedtime pass. So Angela, what would you like to tell us about bedtime passes?
Okay, for those of you who had not heard about this before, this is a really great procedure that was initially used with neurotypical children who are having problems going to bed, who would call out, ask for water, needed to use the bathroom over and over and over, sometimes for a couple hours or more, and just needed something continuously and would not go to bed. The procedure really involves something called this bedtime pass, and it's a one-time use pass where the child gets this pass and can use it for one thing and one thing only. And once the child uses it, they're done. Can't use it anymore. And the parents will ignore every other call out, every other request. That's it. One thing. And what happens is that the child will save it. Will not use it. Will save it because you never know if the boogeyman is going to show up in the bedroom. I don't want to use it on a drink of water. So this is a really great procedure, and it also has been used with children with autism, and it works really well. And before, when we talked about this, you actually brought in one that you made, and we talked about changing it a little bit depending on your child and depending on how many times your child is calling out. So we discussed actually taking some data and saying, is your child calling out or asking for things multiple times? How many times? 10 times. And if that is, maybe give them 3 passes. Okay. Maybe give them a few more passes just because you want to prevent this tendency to just use it and then everything goes crazy because the child has nothing now, and so then it turns into a huge tantrum. This is something that you can make at home. You can make a little card for your child. The one that you had and that I believe you gave away to.
Yeah, we have the template. We can give it again.
The template, and you can buy some Velcro and you can put the passes right on the child's door. And so when the child requests something, even if it's one last hug from mom, you take that pass away, and that's it for the night.
It really works, and we heard from a lot of you that it worked, which is why I wanted to go over it again. It's a great time to go over it again. And I think it makes it easier for the parents, and it makes it easier for the kids. So it reduces the stress, makes bedtime easier, and it gets it done, and we love that.
Exactly. It reduces some anxiety for the child, too, that, I have this opportunity. I have one or a couple opportunities to get something. It's not just, I'm in bed, this is it, I have to go to sleep, and now I'm going to try everything I can to escape from that and get mom's attention or try to get something else. So it just reduces anxiety for the parents, like you said, and for the child as well. It's a great procedure.
Great. So we're going to come back in just a minute, and then I asked if Angela would talk with us a little bit about regression, because it seems like it's a theme right now. You guys have been writing in. We've seen a little bit of regression, and I know a bunch of friends that have said, It's summer. You know, we saw a little bit of regression, and it's in different areas. So we're going to talk about what that looks like, what it means, and what we can do so that we don't lose our minds. Because it's easy to lose our minds when regression happens and think the worst, that the sky is falling, that it's all going to slide into the ocean. And it's not. No. All right. So Angela's going to hold her hand through this. We're going to talk a little bit about regression. Now's a great time if you have questions about regression or the bedtime pass to write in on our live feature on Autism-Live and ask, and we'll make sure to get that question to Angela. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides programs to educate students, parents, and professionals proven techniques using applied behavior analysis. Access online video lessons with IBT eLearning. Get one-on-one personalized instruction with IBT face-to-face training. Acquire professional guidance with IBT BCBA supervision. Develop professional growth with IBT continuing education courses. Get access to IBT services today. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. With us right now in the studio is board-certified behavior analyst Angela Persicke. And I asked her to come in. Am I saying your last name right?
Yes.
Okay. You know, it suddenly occurred to me. I asked her to come in today and talk a little bit about regression, because whenever we get more than 3 questions about something, I go, it's a trend. It's a trend. I'm not alone. And I've noticed this a little bit. The other day, we had some stuff happening that I went, wow, haven't seen that in a while. And it can be an emotional time when you have regression, because for a lot of us, not everyone, but a lot of us had our kids regress into autism. And it seems like when there's a regression, I go right into that space of, oh my gosh, what's happening, and am I going to lose more of him? So I always like to head it off at the pass. So talk to us a little bit about, first of all, why does regression happen? Do we know?
Well, there could be a lot of different reasons why regression may occur. I mean, if we're talking about a child who has been in a program for a while and you're starting to see some skills drop off, or maybe a skill that had been mastered a few months ago, and then it comes up again and the child just has no response to it, and you have to reteach it. These things often have to do with some of the procedures that you use. And I'll get into detail on those procedures and how we can prevent this from happening in a little bit. So, but it could be some of the procedures. There could just be a lack of the natural reinforcement from the environment occurring. Maybe there was too much contrived reinforcement for that specific skill. So when you're no longer sitting there, giving a toy or saying good job for saying hello, maybe the skill did not come under the control of the natural contingencies of the environment. So the environment is not maintaining the behavior. It was this contrived reinforcement. That could be a reason. A lot of times it could be due to potentially the way it was actually taught. Maybe it was taught under specific conditions, and again, those conditions may not be available anymore. Maybe it was taught, the skill was taught by itself and was not, there were no distractors taught at the same time. And so these are all different, there are many different reasons why they occur. Maybe even a fewer number of therapy hours. Maybe the child is only receiving, 6 hours a week or something like that, and there just aren't enough learning opportunities. And so the skill is not being acquired. Or it is like one day you come and then the next week you have to start almost over again. And that could be just because there aren't enough learning opportunities for the child.
I would imagine, too, for some of the more repetitive behavior things that we might see a child doing because it just feels good. And I know we try to go in and teach something that's more socially appropriate, but I'm imagining, too, that if something in the environment changes, that kids might revert back to the old familiar thing because they feel safer doing that, or maybe we just didn't get the job done enough in terms of teaching the replacement behavior.
Exactly. It could be, that might be also a problem of generalization, too. Did you teach it in enough environments so that when the child actually has a change in a new and goes into a new environment, that maybe there is some anxiety with that, and then a lot of things are changing, and so there are a lot of cases where the child will start to engage in behaviors that you haven't seen for years. So. And there's a little bit of a difference there between regression, we're losing skills, and when old behaviors start to emerge again.
Okay, so that's not even regression then, when old behaviors necessarily.
Most of the time when we talk about regression, we're speaking to the loss of skills.
Okay, well, see, now we've all been talking about all of a sudden we'll see a behavior crop back up, and we as parents consider that regression. But that's not actually regression then. That's old behavior cropping up.
Yes.
Well, that's helpful, isn't it?
Yes, and that's
because
how
I do think of it as regression. I feel like we've gone backwards when it isn't necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily, and I can see how it feels that way too. It feels like, oh, we're back to where we were at this point in time. But it could just be different, something in the environment that maybe isn't allowing for the alternative behavior to receive the same reinforcement that it was when you were teaching it and when the child was using it. Sometimes the function of the behavior changes. So it was for attention, and now it's the function is different. It's for escape now. And so these things, I like to look at them as not regression, but that there's something different going on in the environment. So we're not going backwards necessarily, but some change has occurred.
Right.
And the behavior, every behavior has its function. It occurs for some reason. There's always a reason. So it's not necessary. So I don't look at it as a regression in that sense for when behaviors occur again.
See, already it's more hopeful to me because these things, when the old behaviors crop up, tend to happen when there's been a transition in something in the schedule, which means at the beginning of the summer we had some of it, and now that we're at the end of the summer and we're going back to school, we're going to see another spat of it. And if we think of it not as regression but just a change in the environment, then already it takes some of the emotional weight out of it.
Exactly.
Love it. Okay, let's take a little break, and then we're going to come back though and talk about when a child regresses and it's actual regression where we've lost a skill, where it looks like we've lost a skill, that the skill was there and it's gone, and what do we do about that? So stick with us. More with Angela Persicke after these messages.
My name is Rocky.
Autism used to affect 1 in every 10,000 children. Now it affects 1 in every 91 kids.
TACA is one of 5 organizations helping families living with autism today.
Our kids came back to life. There's a whole community out there, and now we're a part of it.
Oh, TACA has a place for me.
To find TACA, go to www.takanow.org.
Please.
Welcome back. We're here with Angela Persicke. She's a board-certified behavior analyst, and she has extensive experience working with children on the autism spectrum. We're talking with her a little bit about regression, and we just got a little clarification about what regression is versus what it's not, because when our kids start doing a behavior they haven't done for a while, I think a lot of us use the word regression. But really, when we're talking about regression, we're talking about loss of skills.
That's what I usually refer to regression as, loss of skills, and I can see how many would use the term regression for, like we said, for behaviors occurring again that haven't occurred for a while, but it is a little more hopeful, a little more optimistic to think of it as there's just some change in the environment. There's something different that's occurring. So it's not necessarily that the kid is or the child is taking a step backwards, but something is different. Something's occurring, and we need to figure out what that is to make sure that we can get the behavior back under control.
Okay. We're going to start, though, with talking about when a child has lost a skill, something that you thought that they were able to do, and the child's been in treatment for a while. Obviously, if for any reason your child loses a skill before you started treatment with a board-certified behavior analyst, it's time to get on the stick and go immediately to a doctor. That's not we'll put it off till next week, or we'll get an appointment for a month from now. The one thing that I learned about when my child got diagnosed with autism, because he lost speech, and the first pediatrician I went to said, "Oh, don't worry about it," right? And I then subsequently was told and have learned that is wrong. That is completely wrong. Children lose skills for a variety of different reasons, and if your child could walk and can't walk, that's time to not panic, but get to the nearest available doctor who can help you to figure out there's a reason why that happened. If your child loses speech even a little bit, you go to the doctor, and you don't stop until somebody gives you an answer. But once they've started treatment and you've been working on and developing skills, and sometimes you think a skill is there, and then you come back and the skill doesn't appear to be there the way it needs to be. So we're talking about what to do when that happens, because we don't want to panic then. We just want to change some stuff, right?
Exactly. Okay. That is our outlook on everything. There's something in the environment that is occurring that is the reason behind why there might be a loss of a skill or why a behavior might be occurring. That's the way we think. So coming at it that way, we first want to look at the training procedures in general. So are you looking at, are you using a total trial training procedure where you have a block of like 10 trials and you have a mastery criteria of maybe 80%?
Okay.
So that means you presented the instruction for the skill maybe 10 times, and if the child gets it right 80% of the time, 8 out of 10, then across a couple days and a couple different people, we often consider that mastered.
And there's a good reason for that, because most things in life we have there's a term that I can't use the word that I want to say, but we have a factor that we allow ourselves. I know how to use a key. I'm completely adept at being able to use a key. I've used a key millions of times in my life, but that doesn't mean that if you hand me a key and say stick it in the door that I'm going to be able to get the lock open the first time. I might drop the key, or I might move it and go, the key isn't quite working right. I don't get it right every time. That doesn't mean that I don't know how to do it. And we have criteria like that for our children. We don't have an expectation they're going to do everything perfect. Who does?
Exactly.
So you set it often at 80%, not necessarily all the time.
That depends on the child, and it depends on the clinician and
the skill.
Yeah, and the skill and what is actually involved. But it's possible that in these situations, the very first trial, or maybe the first and second trial, the child isn't getting it correct. And then once you do an error correction procedure, or give the child the answer or prompt the correct skill or correct response, that the child gets it right every time after that. So if you're seeing that on the first trial every time that the child is getting it incorrect, you might want to change your criteria a little bit to require the first trial only to be correct.
Right.
And this is almost like a true test of, does the child know it? On the very first time I ask you, are you able to tell me?
Yeah.
And if not, then you should probably modify your mastery criteria to the first trial correct.
And do you guys get why this is so important? Because Jem was like this. Jem got into a little phase where he was smart, and he understood when they were going to do something with him. He was like, oh, what is it you want me to do? Oh, you want me to do this? Great. I did it. Now go away. Right? But so they would sit down and show it to him the first time and ask him to do it, and he wouldn't remember because he hadn't actually learned it. He was just complying. And so they would ask them the first time to do it, and he would be all confused, didn't know what they wanted to do. Then they would demonstrate it for him, and he'd go, oh, right, it was that thing. Okay, I can do it for you over and over and over again, but I'm not going to bother to learn it. And by making it that he had to get the first one right, it forced him to actually learn it instead of just being a trained monkey, and because he just didn't want to be bothered. He's like, I'll be happy to give you what you want, but don't ask me to remember it. We've all done that, right? Where somebody, shows us how to do something and we go, oh, I just want to be, people show me stuff on the computer all the time here, and I go, I just want to be able to get into my document and do it. Just do it for me, or show me how to do it this time. And they're like, no, you really need to know how to learn how to do this when I'm not here, and I really kind of don't want to. Right? but I need to, right? So that sort of cuts that down when we say, no, we're going to keep doing it until you get it right on the first time. You don't get the reinforcement until you get it right on the first time. Then they take the time to do it. They're clever. It means they're smart. They want to, they're hoping to get out of it, but we have to be smarter than them for that moment.
Exactly. Our kids are smarter than us a lot of the time.
Yes.
So we have to be a step ahead of them always.
Yes. Jem informs me of that all the time. He's like, but you remember that I'm smarter than you, right? And I go, yes, of course, I do know that, but sometimes I'm cleverer.
Yes, exactly. So if you're not noticing the pattern of it's the very first trial, then this that the child does not get correct or gets incorrect, then that might not be the problem. You might not have to just look at the very first trial, but you could increase your mastery criteria. So if it's now at 80%, maybe increase it to 100% depending on the skill. And there's also, depending on what skill it is too, really evaluate it and see, is 80% something that do we want them to do it 80% of the time? Like something like looking both ways before you cross the street. We want that done 100% of the time, every time.
Can we make it 110% for that? I want that to be 110%.
Exactly. So maybe evaluate certain skills. Are you just, as a clinician, were you just following a rule of 80% is okay?
Yeah.
Or are you actually evaluating the skill and analyzing it for what the child needs to be doing? And this is really important. And also for some skills that are prerequisite for other skills, you want the child to know these fluently, like counting numbers, letters. Like these are prerequisites for so many other more complex skills that if your criteria for mastery is 80%, you might want to increase it to 100% in order to be able to move on to more of these advanced skills.
So safe to say that sometimes when a skill is lost, it's because we didn't set our mastery criteria in the right place.
Exactly.
That we need to make sure that we taught it in a way that it's functional for their life. Whenever you guys talk about mastery criteria, I always remind myself, don't let the tail wag the dog. The criteria is only there to help us to know, did we teach it enough? And if it isn't taught enough, then the mastery criteria isn't right. And it's not, nobody's going to go, no, mastery criteria on that is 80%. It's what works for the child so that they've learned the skill functionally.
Exactly.
Okay.
So for also, in addition to that, still talking about our training procedures, you also want to make sure the skill has been placed in random rotation, so there are other skills that are being presented along with that skill that you're targeting, to make sure the child can discriminate between different targets. So you don't want the child to just be responding in a block of 10 trials in one sitting to the exact same target. Maybe initially when you're very first learning it, but in order to consider a skill learned or mastered, the child has to be able to identify and discriminate that skill between other distractors that are known, other distractors that are unknown, and also distractors that are very similar to that as well. So if you're teaching just something basic like shapes, you want to make sure that the child can discriminate between square and rectangle, because those are very similar. Instead of just square and circle or square and triangle. Make sure you put very similar items together and see if your child's able to respond correctly as well.
Because you can teach square. And a child can know square, but they really don't know square until they can identify between a square and a rectangle and a cone and everything else.
You want to make sure you're not just teaching the child to respond to one specific thing in isolation. And also, we have to remember when it's receptive. So when it's when you say something and the child has to maybe touch the object. Or point to or give. When you're teaching that, you're trying to teach the meaning of square for what it is, and so, or the meaning of whatever the object or whatever it is. And so you're not focusing on just the give me part.
Right.
And a lot of children learn that, especially when the skills in isolation is there's one thing present and it's give me. It's like, okay, but I'm not learning that what I'm giving you is what you're saying necessarily. I'm just following. I'm just being compliant. I'm just following an instruction.
Yeah, part of what we see with our kids with autism is that they didn't gain a skill for whatever reason. And then when we pick it apart and say, okay, in order to teach this skill or this concept, we have to do all of these little steps. It's all these little threads that we have to tie together to get the chain so that the child has this understanding of it. But even in doing that, as we start putting together little steps, sometimes there's one little step we didn't do long enough or we didn't do varied enough or whatever. And sometimes when it isn't all there, we have to go back and pick up that thread and pull it through. When I think about, here is this thing that's a mouse. And for a child who doesn't have language, the word mouse has nothing to do with this, and we have to teach mouse receptively so that when I say mouse, they understand this. We have to teach it expressively so that when they say mouse, they're talking about this. We have to teach a picture of a mouse. We have to teach this 3D version of a mouse. We have to teach the fact that there is a different kind of mouse that has a tail and lives and breathes. We have to teach the function of this mouse and the fact that it doesn't always look this way. Sometimes it's a ball. Right? I mean, it's endless the amount. We need to be able to say something about how do you make a cursor move and have the child with the word mouse nowhere in that sentence be able to identify it's a mouse. So it's an insane amount of things just for a mouse. And as we look around the room and see all the things that we want to teach our children, there are plenty of opportunities where we might have dropped a thread.
Exactly. And also, for training procedures, again, you have to evaluate all of these things, but also for skills that have been previous learned and maybe we haven't looked at in a while, we haven't used in a while, we need to talk about maintenance. And do you have procedures in place to ensure that your child is maintaining this skill outside of the training setting, and when you're no longer providing that contrived reinforcement for it? And sometimes you have to actually very frequently probe. Which is just another word for testing, to see if the child still has the skill. So after a week or even a couple days, ask the same question: does your child respond correctly? If it's after a month, does your child respond correctly as well? And sometimes if you see that you have after a couple weeks, and then the question or the instruction is required and the response is required in a given setting, and you don't see that the child is using that skill, then you might want to look at your maintenance procedures. Are you actually programming for maintenance? This is really important in an autism treatment program, because we do have so many more advanced skills that we will have to target along the road, and if we don't make sure that the previously learned skills are maintained, then we'll have to spend a lot of time going back and actually reteaching these skills.
I would tell you that I think this is my biggest problem as a parent, that I don't work the maintenance things enough. I'm not as cognizant of it in the moment. And we've gone through this with several different things, but the one that continues to kick my keister is the shoe tying, because we worked really hard on the shoe tying. It was very emotional for my son. We had some difficulties with it. He finally got the shoe tying, and we were so relieved that shortly after that, it was time to get a new pair of school shoes, and I got him the Velcro ones because I don't know why. My brain was on vacation, and we had Velcro shoes for a year. Then the next year when we went and got the next pair of shoes and they were tie, he had completely forgotten it. And this stunned my husband and I. And so we continued to work on it, and the shoe tying got all great. And then, of course, what happened this summer, he was in sandals all summer long. And so when I'm there doing the shoe tying again yesterday, and I'm saying tie your own shoes, and he, had lost some of his fluency. He still knows how to do it, but the fluency is gone. And I got to go back. And, of course, he doesn't want to. He would be happy to be in loafers for the rest of his life because it's been tied to so many times having to go back because I continue to blow it.
Yeah, and that's difficult for everybody. I mean, even look at your own life and how many things did you learn maybe in college or high school that someone would tell you a math problem now and you're like, I have no idea what to do with that. And so there are some skills that you learn at some point and then you won't use for a very long time or sometimes ever again.
Yeah.
But something like shoe tying, you will have to, even if you're wearing flip-flops, a year, 2 years. At some point, you might have to put on a pair of running shoes and tie your shoe.
Right.
And so these things, that's another way to evaluate them. How often will the child actually have to use this skill across his or her lifetime? Like, will this come up frequently or even every once in a while, and the child should be required to do it every once in a while? It comes back to the street crossing. Maybe we don't cross streets that often. Maybe we're in our car a lot and we're driving a lot, but when it comes to the point where the child has to cross the street, even if it's years later, we want to make sure that the child looks both ways and does everything correctly. Otherwise, it could be awful. So,
life and death.
So that's another way to evaluate the skill when we're talking about maintenance. How often will the child need this? Will it be a prerequisite for a more advanced skill? Is this something that will be required for your child to do at 100% accuracy every single time?
Yeah. So
even if it hasn't been presented for a long time.
So is it safe to say then with these lost skills, the main thing is that we need to go back and look at all of our teaching procedures and see where we need to pick it up and reteach? Mm-hmm. And that's something that classroom teachers do all the time. We have to keep evaluating, keep giving opportunities, go back, reteach what has to be retaught from whatever point it is. No judgment, no recriminations to the child. It's not the child's fault, and no recriminations to ourselves, but get the job done and get it done for keeps.
Yes, but also to look at these as you're teaching the skill to prevent loss of skills in the future. So we want to make sure that we are including these in our teaching procedures, and we are constantly evaluating our teaching procedures to see will this work? Are we including maintenance? And are we using the right type of prompts? Is the child dependent on the prompts? And all these different things. And if you have a really good supervisor and a really good treatment team, they will be looking at these a lot.
Okay. So lean into them. Ask them for help if you see things starting to dwindle away. Okay, I want to take a break, and then when we come back, can we talk about when the challenging behavior crops back up? All right, so stick with us. More with Angela Persicke after these messages.
I met Angela, and I approve. Hell, I love this message.
Welcome to Exceptional Minds, a vocational school and animation studio creating a future for young adults on the autism spectrum.
What you're about to see is nothing short of a miracle.
We've seen our student population double. We've seen their names on blockbuster films, and yes, they've earned their accreditation.
Visit our website and find out how you can be part of the solution.
Oh, we just love Ed Asner, don't we? He's a proud papa and a grandpa, and that's a wonderful thing. On the spectrum, that he has a child on the spectrum and he has a grandchild on the spectrum. So bless his heart. He wasn't feeling well early in the year, and we hear he's feeling better. We hope that's the case. In any case, we're here with Angela Persicke. We've been talking about regression in lots of different ways, and one of the things that as parents we refer to regression is when a challenging behavior went away with work or went away for whatever reason, and then there are just times when these things crop back up and we go, really? I didn't want that old friend to come back. Our kids will do things, and I watched my son do something the other day that I went, I have not seen that in a really, really long time. And it makes us nervous, but we want to talk a little bit about why these things happen and what we can do when they happen. So Angela, you're a board-certified behavior analyst. Help us out to understand these moments.
So again, as we've been saying with even with the loss of skills, so there is something in the environment that's happening. We have to look at the environment, what has changed, what is the same, has there been any type of difference that you can identify in the environment, especially with challenging behaviors? Is it becoming more difficult for some reason, more effortful for the child to engage in the alternative behavior?
Yeah.
And the purpose of teaching the alternative behavior is to allow, for a more appropriate behavior to be reinforced differentially, but also that alternative behavior has to get the child the exact same thing that he or she was getting for engaging in the inappropriate behavior.
Okay.
So there could be something going on where that's not working anymore to get the same reinforcement. So
let's do an example. So say, for instance, a child's flapping their hands. That's their thing that they like to do. And it's looked at to find out that, it's a thing where it soothes the child because it just feels good, and they're looking at their hands, and that motion calms them down. We give them a more socially appropriate behavior to do to calm themselves down, and it might be, squeezing their arms. That ends up, for a period of time, having the same effect as doing this, but it's more socially appropriate that they can stand there and squeeze their own arms. And then all of a sudden the hand flapping comes back up, and it's because this squeezing the arms, for whatever reason, there's something in the environment that's preventing that from being as effective.
Exactly.
And it could be that the shirt that they're wearing, they can't get at their arms, or it could be that mom and dad are getting a divorce, and that this isn't getting it done anymore. I just wanted to give wild examples. Because this is one of those things where it's so much easier to see on the outside. How often have we been sitting there with a girlfriend or a guy friend who says, I don't know why they're doing this all of a sudden, and then somebody else says, do you think it could be because, you just moved schools? And they're like, no, I'm sure that's not it. And we do that as parents. We go, no, it can't be that, because they dealt so well with that. But for those of us on the outside, we go, come on. They're not dealing so well with it because this thing is happening.
Exactly. And, for something like this example you mentioned with the hand flapping, maybe the squeezing was just as effective, but there's there's something more extreme happening. Maybe it's a bigger change, and like you said, this is not working anymore. And maybe, and you might even see the child do more than just the hand flapping. So they start hand flapping, they start engaging in all kinds of different behaviors, just to, something should work. And that's, that we can look at as extinction. So this is not producing the reinforcement anymore. So the child's going to vary his or her behavior. And it might be a behavior that's worked in the past. It might be a completely new behavior. But when something isn't working, and this is what we do when we teach parents, okay, you need to ignore this, or you need to block this, or not ignore this.
Right, exactly.
That's what we're talking about with extinction, because it's not working for the child anymore. The child isn't getting that same reinforcement anymore. And so we need to look at it that way. So why is that an appropriate behavior that we taught not working anymore? Why? What is so different? What is going on? And you might not have the answer to that. You might not be able to really identify why it's not working. But the fact is, moving forward, we need to identify something else that does work.
Yeah. And we'll see, you brought up that sometimes the function of the behavior changes. And I think that potty training is a really good example of this, because we'll see, kids wet their pants because it's what they know and understand. It's the behavior that they understand. And then we give them the replacement behavior and they go, well, I like this. I prefer this. I want to go to the bathroom and the toilet. I don't want to sit in my own feces. I don't want to do, I don't want to be wet. I don't like the feeling of that. So it's preferred thing for them to go in the toilet. But then something happens environmentally, and we see that toilet training goes out the door. Now, it's not because they don't know how to do it anymore, but there are other things going on, and that sometimes it's for attention.
Yes.
Where it wasn't before. Our kids weren't peeing in the diaper to get attention.
No.
But now it can be something different. So when you see a challenging behavior that you dealt with happen, first thing you want to do is look for clues in the environment. But at a certain point, we acknowledge the fact that we might be limited in that. We might be too close to the situation to do that. So is it really just advisable to get professional help at that point if you see a challenging behavior come back up?
Yes, especially if it is severe behavior, dangerous behavior, if it's dangerous for the individual or for others. Definitely seek out professional help from a BCBA, and that person will be able to help in those situations too. Because sometimes you are just too close. You're too close, and it's hard. It's hard when all of a sudden you're thinking, we've worked for years on this, and why is this happening again? And sometimes you can't separate yourself from some of those thoughts and feelings you're having of, it must be me, what am I doing wrong? And instead, it's not you at all. I mean, there might be some things that you're doing that could contribute to it, but it's about moving forward. It's not getting caught up in, oh my gosh, my child is losing skills, or my child's regressing. What is this going to look like? Is it going to keep occurring? If you get caught up in that, you might not be able to effectively help your child. So yes, it would be a good idea to seek out a BCBA in those situations, and they would be able to stand back and help you through it.
Yeah. And I think, especially for the young kids, it's hard to know, and you're having to be a detective and you're having to figure things out, and you don't have a whole lot of time, and you want to be effective. So I especially think that it's great to reach out. But as our kids progress and their skill level changes, I have seen this morphs, that now when I see my son start to engage in some behavior that, is random to me, or is something that came up from before that I thought was gone, I can turn to him and say, dude, what's happening right now? And get him to talk to me. Now, sometimes his initial response is, I don't know, I don't want to talk about it, whatever. But that has as much to do with him being a male person who is the age of 10, who doesn't yet have all the language for things as it has to do with being a kid who was diagnosed with autism. And you drag it out of them, to say, what's going on and why are you doing that? And I can even at this point, I'm like so grateful that at this point I can say to him, what are you doing? The other day we went to a very sensory crazy place, and we were there a little bit longer than we probably should have been. And I had an expectation that there was going to be a download afterwards. And usually he has to be in a quiet place afterwards with not a lot of demands. But we had another child with us, a buddy, who went on the play date with us. So there were the two of them together, and Jem, because he didn't have that release, started making a lot of high-pitched noises and that I hadn't heard in a long time. And to the point where the friend said, dude, what are you doing? You sound like C-3PO. What are you doing? And then my son was like, I've been caught, because he knows he can do these kinds of things on his own time. But, it was an interesting thing. And then he and I had a conversation about it afterwards about what can you do? Because he said, I just wanted to make some noise because my head was full of noises, he said to me. And so we talked about what can you do instead to get your head less full of noises, so that the friend doesn't go, dude, what are you doing?
That's great.
Lucky that we can talk about it now, because we couldn't have for so many years. So I just want to throw that into the mix, that, because we had somebody write in saying, does it get better with time? And I think everything gets better. The more you invest in these kinds of things, I think the more streamlined it can be down the road.
And the overall, the point that we're trying to make is that it's not something you necessarily need to panic about.
Right.
That it's hopeful. There are things that we do and we can do and we do all the time to make sure that this doesn't continue to be a problem. And there's a lot of, there are a lot of things that are very scary about it, and because like you said too, it looks a lot like the very beginning.
It does,
and it's really scary. It's very scary, and but it's important to take a step back and say, okay, what can I do to move forward? This isn't something to necessarily panic about. Of course, there will be those panic feelings. You'll have those. That will happen. but what can I do? Let me look at what's going on right now.
So don't bury your head in the sand, but don't be paralyzed.
Yes.
Get proactive about it. Notice it, and then figure out what the plan of attack is.
Exactly. And if it's something that is coming up, where there might be some event that's different, some transition, something happening, maybe start to work with your child before that on different skills that you think might be necessary. If it's going to be if you think that a specific behavior might emerge again, challenging behavior, maybe work on some different strategies instead of just that single one that you used to work on. Maybe work on other appropriate behaviors that the child could engage in too if one isn't working.
Yeah.
And if this isn't working, sometimes things don't work.
Yep.
But let's try a different one.
What I love, though, is that as BCBAs, you have the attitude of it's not the child's fault. Yeah. If something isn't working, there's something else that we're going to try.
Exactly.
And I think that's ultimately helpful. Angela, I thank you so much for being here with us. I always look forward to you being here. And if you have questions for Angela, make sure that you keep writing them in because we will share those with her. We're going to take a short break and come back and finish out the show, but we're going to say goodbye to Angela. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
All right, stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3 and shut down. And sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? Well, what skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something. Missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job! Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know. In most manuals, you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November. It seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because In 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here at the end of the show, and Emily's going to start to show you some of the ways that you can get in touch with us. I'm going to remind all of you that our winner of our prize package, which was the One Hope bottle of wine, the endless game called Cornered, and Temple Grandin's book, The Autistic Brain, is going to Heidi Van Oss. Congratulations to Heidi. One of our past guests, Mike Hipple, who has a book about starting school, has also graciously offered to give her a gift, and Mike has said that he'd like to send us some books to give away next week. Mike, we'd love to have them. You need to send them to us so that we can ship them from here, because we can't give you people's addresses. But Mike, send them. And if you have something that you would like to give away here on the show, you have a business and you want to get, we love to give stuff away here. So we'll be thrilled to give away whatever you want. Send it over to us. And if you want to say how you want us to give it away or want to be a part of that, we'll be happy to entertain that with you. A couple of short housekeeping things. Tomorrow on the show, Dr. Adele Nadowski will be here with us, and she is going to be talking with us about BIPs, Behavior Intervention Plans. I know for a lot of us, we're going back to school next week, and it's time to pull out those IEPs and the BIPs and take a look at them. I promised you a tip for that, and I'm going to give it in 1 second, but also Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is going to be with us answering some of the questions that you guys sent in over the last couple of days. So he will be with us as well for Science Beat, looking at things from a more research perspective. So your school tip, get your IEP out and see if it has BIP checked on it. If it does, make sure that it is attached. Get yourself some sheet protectors and make copies of the IEP and make copies of the BIP. If you can take it on and make it in as friendly language as possible, do that. But put them in sheet protectors with the IEP on one side, the BIP on the other side, so that next week when you go off to school, you can hand them to each person who is going to be interacting with your child. What a fabulous way of ensuring that they know for sure what they're supposed to do if your child, what they're supposed to be teaching your child, what goals they're supposed to be working on, because a lot of times that IEP is locked up someplace other than where the teaching is happening, and that they know how to intervene for those challenging behaviors so that we keep our kids safe and that we keep our consequences being consistent. Really super duper important for success. We're going to be back here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to have more information for you about when you're going to be able to watch us live on your iPads and your Nobbies and on your Android tablets. We're really excited about being able to do that. Don't forget to go on our Facebook and make sure that you, they're telling me wrap it up. Make sure you go on our Facebook and tell us why you want to win that fabulous backpack. That's on our Facebook right now. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.